So yeah, it's been around for the last 30 years, 30 some years, especially after the coming of the web. I think there's been a bit more of, you know, the pervasive encroachment of technology, ICTs in every facet and area of our lives. And so it will be interesting for us to be able to see this and perhaps look at ways that we can do this. This is not very interesting. So I'm just encouraging us. If we're meeting next week online, I'll send this early so you guys can come early and settle. Okay, otherwise it's just distracting. But so how are we going to do that? We shall put us in teams, and we shall give us one grand task to do. And our desire is that as you do that task, then we shall be learning as you go along. So that is, we shall show us the end, and then we can then walk from the beginning, okay, together. And that end over there is going to be what we shall put on the table at the end of the day, so that we can then be able to look at it and establish, yes, indeed you've learned something, okay? There's going to be an end there, and this stage we shall be working together, as it were. But so this is not your cybersecurity course. That is very technical, okay? It requires quite a lot of work, and you don't even have one textbook that you can put on the table and say this one. There isn't one, okay? So there is resources and materials all over the place. And so we're just imagining that this can be done differently, which will be more rewarding, more interesting, and enables you to learn. But it will require that you work in teams, and you actually work, because if you don't work, it's going to be challenging. So let me just share with us what are the learning outcomes as we imagine them. Then I can just share how I think this is going to work together. Then I don't think I want to dive down into lots of details today. And we can meet on Wednesday and begin to execute this. So basically saying that at the end of this course unit, learners, aka yourselves, should be able to define technology and ICTs, describe various perspectives of ICTs and of society. So we're just establishing the building blocks or the lenses through which we look at these technologies and society, because some of the pitfalls of the implementation of ICTs, especially in society, talk about government, talk about communities, have been the fact that we have not got a clear lens through which we look at technology, interpret technology, and utilize technology. Okay, so that by the year 2001, there are lots of organizations, governmental, bilateral, intergovernmental, international organizations that are putting resources and effort towards trying to utilize ICTs to have developmental outcomes in society. And in fact, by that year alone, 2001, the World Bank put in 1.1 billion US dollars into initiatives and interventions of ICTs in society. Well, many years later, that money was spent, and we can't quite be able to clearly demonstrate and show very clear outcomes and impacts of these resources in technology in a society. Okay, that's a serious statement to make. But one reason why we should give it serious consideration is because we have not then gone back to look at impact studies that have said, okay, we spent, say, $2 billion in 2001. Show us the impacts. Okay, no one has ever done that. People just whimper away. But that began to raise very serious questions. We should be talking about appropriate ICTs, not just ICTs. And that question had been settled many years ago, 50s, 60s, about appropriate, 70s, appropriate technologies. But when the ICTs came around, we began to think of it as a magic bullet or a panacea that could solve all societal problems. So we began to throw it at problems. And as you and I know very well, creating solutions before you know what the problem is doesn't enable you to solve problems. So anyway, let me not begin to open up this space before. So we look at the various lenses through which you can look at ICTs. Then we look at a certain concepts of the information society. Again, this is a metaphor, okay? It's a metaphor. I'm sure very briefly look at that. But by that, in the 90s, this began to be rolled out there, and it became the metaphor later on, the rallying call that countries and organizations, international organizations used to more or less begin to see how we can bring ICTs to bear in societal interventions, okay? So that by the year 2003, we had a summit. It was called the World Summit on the Information Society, sponsored by the Secretary General of the United Nations. So it brought governments, international organizations, civil society, development organizations, all of them around one table in Geneva, and they talked about it. Okay, so what is this information society? So the main thing was, we shall look at that later on, that we have entered a different society, a different age. We came from the hunter-gatherer, we came to the agrarian age, we came to the industrial, age, and now we're in the information age. Okay, and the main thing in this age is information. Okay, and the thinking or the arguments is that jobs have changed, right? A lot of the jobs that people are getting today, they work in this space of information. Okay, so the economic activities are basically driven by information. So you talk about the knowledge society, information, the knowledge economy, for instance. Then they said, oh, okay, you see, the whole world is networked now. Okay, we up to the community, the last mile today, are connected. And I guess that was then. Now it's us, because everybody can connect to the internet from their phone. And the international organizations now are even saying we don't need Safaricom. Maybe the next 1 year or so, if the policymakers and the lawmakers allow, you can just have your mobile phone. I'm sure you've seen those that discussion, and you don't need Safaricom. You just connect to the satellites, connect to the internet, and you're good to go. Okay, so you can imagine that scenario. It doesn't matter anymore. You just need a phone with GSM, and you don't need those base towers of Safaricom. You can just connect. So at that point, therefore, then everybody has is more or less connected. We can. So, but then the argument was, if since we're all connected, then we're in the information society. It was everybody has a laptop, everybody has a mobile phone, everybody has such the internet connectivity has gone very high. So the information society. Then of course you say a lot of the cultural content now is coming to us through technology. Okay, that's not quite right. What I meant to say is that your life is surrounded by cultural content. When you wake up in the morning, what do you do? First, some of us, you put on your social media, right? Then throughout this day, then of course, articles are being pushed at you all the time. Articles, whether it's news, whether it's who you follow, whether it's entertainment, whether it's sports. You're going to the bank. If you want to go to the bank because you need services inside, not just money, then on the corner there's a television there, and CNN and others are doing this. You go to this other place, then you go to have those sitcoms of Citizen TV, all the time, and those Niger movies and all sorts of so we are all inundated by cultural content. So you're saying it's information, okay? Not quite, but so we say, okay, because in that case, so you want to unpack that, and because it's actually being used to try and make sure that the ICT infrastructure to enable this is released. So we're going to look at that. So probably those who pray fast because they're kind of foundational, okay? And then after that, we shall think about the effects of ICTs in society, okay? We shall think about, we shall more or less introduce outcomes, outputs, outcomes, and impact. And then we shall talk about policy analysis, in other words, how to come up with policy. And then your work we shall begin. Okay, so if I cover that in the next few weeks, I'll be happy. Okay, that's not true. These are the learning outcomes, but we have to learn all through, okay? But in terms of what I want us to cover in class, more to say, there are probably going to be some lecture on the information society and stuff like that, Then we shall look at effects, okay, not the effects of ICTs, but we shall look at this outcomes, outputs, outcomes, and impacts. Then we shall look at policy analysis. Okay. Then after that, you will tackle your task, and that task can be shared as early as this coming week so that you can begin thinking about it. So as we learn these things, it's actually to influence what you shall ultimately come up with, and it's going to be around policy, but I shall explain that not today. So that's how it's going to look like. This was basically some of the things we shall look at, but it's going to be slightly different and it's going to be clear. I'm going to share this later on, then you can look at it. But more or less at the end of the unit, the module, these are the things you should be able to do. Okay. Great. The rest is one day, one time. We shall have assessment, and this is how the assessment was thought through last year. But it's going to be different. The way it was, you just give us topic or whatever, and you can look at it. But the thing is, it's going to be different. I'm going to share exactly how that's going to look like. It's probably going to be 40-10. We'll just give you a paper to write at the very end, like a reflection, like what you learned and many different things. But maybe 40 of it is going to be around the group work. So as I release you to form groups shortly, do this wisely. Don't just think about your friends. Don't just think about the groups you work with. Because if your group is going to determine 40 marks, then you better think wisely. You better just jettison people who are just joyriders and people who don't actually are not willing to learn with you and put in the work to be able to learn. Because I'm just promising you that a lot of the learning is going to be done as you tackle the main thing you're going to work. Okay. So that's what I would say. And then, of course, the rest at the end of the semester is going to be an assessment, summative assessment, basically giving a chance to share what you've learned. And it's going to be based quite a bit on what you've gone through. Okay, in the year, in the semester. both in terms of how you're working in teams and in groups and the lessons that you're learning. So it's going to be quite, if you don't get through the process of learning, especially working in that task as a team, then you find it difficult. Okay, so so I hope you hear me well. But I don't want to keep you too long because I want you to go back and think it through and form teams so that Tuesday by Wednesday this is in place. But before we can think about, okay, we come up with strategies and policies because there's something you want to do, right? Uh, or maybe that's where we should begin. Okay, let me pull this down so I can see us. So people want to be admitted. So let me ask this. You've done a number of courses on management and information systems and related. Okay. My question is, in the hierarchy of coming up with strategies, say for instance, for organizations, where does strategy, okay, maybe strategic plan and policy come in, okay, which comes first, policy or strategy? Who wants to go? Yes, Adrian.
I think a policy would come first because it would also inform the strategy because your policy is how you want to do things, how you want things to be done, and let's say potentially how you want to interact, let's say with your customers or something like that, or your users. So your policy would inform your strategy. So policy comes first.
Okay, Adrian feels policy should come first. Does someone else think differently? Okay, Emmanuel.
For me, I think it's strategy first,
Mhm.
then policy. Because, okay, from a point of you're developing strategy to define the kind of direction you want to take,
Yeah.
and then I use the policy to actualize the strategy. So I'd say strategy first.
Okay, strategy first. Using Emmanuel's words, you're determining where you want to go, say as an organization or as a society. So, you come up with a strategy, then later on you can think about policy. Okay. Two opposing positions. Is there a tiebreaker or someone wants to bring a bit more wisdom or a bit more illumination of this space? Or maybe someone wants to come and tell us what do we mean by strategy and policy and why are they different? Someone else. All right, Frederick.
Yes, according to me, I think policy should come first because all the strategies should always operate within the policy's boundaries.
Okay. Okay, that's a position. Policy 2 to 1. Anyone else? Okay, so we are voting now, right? We need to poll a few more people, perhaps. But Gundo wants to say something.
Yes, for me, I think policy should come first because, for example, an organization can have a policy towards customer happiness, and then maybe the company can now develop strategies for how to achieve that policy. So policy should come first.
Okay. Allow the last one. Yes, Alex.
Okay, for me, I'll agree with Emmanuel. It's the strategy that comes first because it will give the direction of the organization, like what they do and what they are, where they are trying to achieve, like those long-term objectives. And then now the policies, what will guide those, like define those strategies and support them and how to achieve them. So the policies, I would say, are the how, like the how to achieve that strategy. So for me, strategy would come first. I believe you are muted. I can't hear on my end.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Yeah, sorry, I was talking to myself. Stephen says, I think we formulate policy, which is a protocols to gather decisions, and next we make a strategy, finding a detailed plan to achieve that strategy. Okay. The others are quite. I'm a student of the scriptures. They say that if you are quiet, you can look very wise, because no one knows what is in your mind. I wonder what the rest of us think. Oh, you're just playing safe, right? uh, okay. Okay, Ayman wants to say something.
Um, so you asked a question about the policies and strategy. Which one comes first? Yeah.
Yes.
So I feel like the policies are should be standard and like set, no matter like the stuff there or like whatever operations happen. So then they should come first, and then the strategies according to the certain objectives, as Alex said, the goals that would be there at a certain time in the company, then the strategies would work towards achieving those mini goals. But the policies should just be standard and there. So I feel like the policies would come first.
Okay. Alex Mutuku.
Yes, I already gave my point. Yes.
Okay. Ayman already said that. Okay. Sasa, I would have expected hands flying everywhere. Sasa nitawasema kwa profesa wenu. You did a course called Organizations and Society. And I happen to know the gentleman who, and it helps you to learn that. So I will send him this conversation. And it shall determine. Anyway, I'm pulling your leg. Yes, but it's an interesting debate. But let's step back a little bit. And so before we vote. So let's just think about, okay, last year, I think this year actually, the University of Nairobi just rolled out a strategic plan from I think year 2022 to 2027 or something. No, I think 2023 to 2028 or something like that. So to be able to do that, you talk to lots of different people. To be able to do that, you evaluate what you've done the last 5 years. To be able to do that, you look at the external environment. You establish, what are the what exactly do we want to do? Because ultimately, you need to be able to say that. Okay, who are we? Why are we here? And the story. We have a vision. We probably want to make sure that we are the top university in Africa, maybe in the next so many years, and maybe top in terms of what? Impact in society, in terms of research, in terms of impact research, in terms of research which is being converted into products and services and policies that are positively affecting society. Maybe in terms of the graduates that are coming out of our place, maybe our alumni, as University of Nairobi, for the next maybe 50 years, shall make sure that we. Okay, I'll give you. Let me give you a story that was done. I think 2011 to 2013 for MIT. So they say that their alumni went out there and formed companies and organizations and startups that grew. And they say that by that year, they looked at the alumni of MIT and they determined that the what is it called? The incomes of all those organizations rolled out across the world by these MIT alumni. The cumulative income per year was equivalent to the GDP of the 10th largest economy in the world. Okay, that's MIT. All right. So maybe that's what UN wants to do, not build MIT, but say we want to make sure that by, in 20 years' time, you shall look back and say, well, graduates have been able to do this in Africa. So for you to do that, then you come up and say, what are the major issues? Maybe one of them is, okay, perhaps you say, okay, we're struggling with infrastructure. We're struggling with even running the university. So maybe you say, okay, money is an issue. Funding is an issue. The exchequer keeps reducing. Now we're hearing about the new funding model, which is already raising a lot of temperatures, okay, and a lot of problems. Then you say, okay, that's one. Then we want to make sure that we bring learning to another level, okay, so that people come in, they're engaged, they're excited, they're adventurous, they're curious, they're learning in this very fast-paced place where they say that the education model needs a lot of thinking. In the age of AI, for instance, in the age of the generative AI, for instance, how can we use generative AI as an ally for learning so that we enable you to utilize it to do this? These are the many things you do, and you're left with the high-level creative abilities, innovative, how you can utilize it creatively to be able to solve problems. So we want people that can solve problems, and problems that address needs. And so we'll give you, we'll help you learn, skills at a very high level, so we can utilize this. So in that case, then we don't take you through the main thing. So even during the learning process, we use it. Okay, then so that we make learning interesting, creative, engaging, and stuff like that. Then you say, okay, one of the things you do is you want to bring cultures and people from different. So you want to attract students across Africa and across the world to be able to come, so that we can be the place where all these young people with time, with energy, and we want to make sure that lecturers are going to spend time 80% or 90% of their time in campus, either doing research, engaging students into the research, whatever, and then being able to work with students and mentor students and work with them in their projects and the different endeavors. And we want to make sure that we can retool our faculty to bring in lots of resources from the Melinda Gates Foundation, from Ford Foundation, so that can be availed for research and for projects that are interesting for students. So we see all these things, and then we say, we put it on the table, say, what is hindering us from getting there? Let's look at the issues that are hindering us from getting there. Then we say, okay, so how can we attack those hindrances, and how can we then utilize what we have right now? Okay, maybe say, okay, well, we have 200 full professors. We have another 200 associate professors. We have another 500 people with PhDs. You know what I mean? That's a huge research asset. We're not even utilizing them. A lot of the research that is done, it never gets into products and services and stuff like that, and unlike places like Stanford and MIT. So how do we be able to do that? So we begin to paint a picture where we are going, and then see, how do we get there? So how do we get there from where we are today? That is a strategy. That is a strategic plan. And then once we are clear with the strategic plans, we say, okay, so what do we need to put in place to ensure that everybody is on board, and what shall people be doing to make sure we all move together to get to that place? So we need to think about guidelines and best practices, all right? And how do we do things? For instance, how do we admit students? to make sure we get the top students coming. I'm not just saying, of course, you're the top students who come, for instance, UN, but check it out. How is it that we make sure that all the students who are engaged, who are excited, who are adventurous, who are curious shall come to us? So that, we shut out the competition because you want the best, because you have a clear vision. So how can we make sure that our admission policy, how do we brand ourselves and market ourselves? Not like the bank, no, but how can we begin to tell the world we have impact? And this is exciting. How can we begin to show that, that Gloria, she did her 4th-year project, and then she came up with a system, and then she pushed it to an accelerator, and then she got 100 million USD seed funding, and then after that, within 5 years, a unicorn across Africa. And you don't need to brand yourself. We just need to talk about Gloria's story. We just make sure she's there talking about it. Now, most students, you want to come down. So how do we make sure there's an environment to make sure by the time Gloria gets to 4th year, she has what it takes to push, to work on her project so that it can actually be a product that is addressing a need, and then she can get a team around her, and then attract funding, and then make sure it's a unicorn in the next one. How do we do that? So we say, okay, to do that, we need to put this thing in place for faculty, for students, for learning spaces, right? So the latter part I'm describing is policy. It's about guidelines, best practices, how to do it so that we achieve that, okay? So those who are the opposing whatever, I'm sorry, I pulled your leg. But that's the way it is. Policies, like someone said, are standard. So as you when we say, these are the policies concerning learning. These are the policies concerning, say, for instance, student, application process. These are the strategies for research. These are the strategies for this. So you come up with policy to support where you're going. Okay. So what are the strategic issues? So what are the strategies? What are the strategic objectives? And then the plans? And then what policies do you need to be able to support that? Okay. All right. I just gave you a small talking through around the strategy formulation process, which I'm very sure Professor Ayama took you through, but never mind. It's been a long time, and you guys are from industry. We have fresh ideas. So anyway, it's just a reflection. Don't worry. So the thing is that we want to then, okay, so I was sharing that. So think about it, and then I won't keep you much longer now. I think by 12:15, I'll let you guys go. So one of the things we like to do is look at the effects of, that's why I actually took off on this other tangent, outputs, outcomes, and impact. So if we say this is what we want, this is what we want to achieve as a country, for instance, as a government, or as a county, okay? And then this is how we want to get there. And then you look at what are some of the things we need to do, and so what are the candidates to get there? Then you may say, okay, those are the outcomes out there we need, and then what do we need? Okay, so ultimately say, okay, we need some technology, and ICTs are actually, so how can we do that? Okay, so with that, therefore, then we can begin to come up with policies that shall enable us to get to go where we're going. Okay, so perhaps part of what we shall be able to ask you to come up. Okay, but let me share that maybe on Wednesday or early next week. What is that thing that you want to be able to come up with? And then, of course, the fact that now there's so many different technologies around IT, around computing. How can we be able to utilize all these emerging technology? Think about, say, generative AI. Think about, maybe like the blockchain technology. Think about how perhaps the different areas, we'll be able to utilize them. So you'll be able to look at that. Okay. So there's going to be quite a bit of exploration and a bit of reading, a bit of discussion, and let's see what comes up. But if you remember what I said, discuss the effects on ICTs in society. That is the outputs, outcomes, and impacts. So can we try and unpack this? Outputs, outcomes, and impacts. The effects of ICTs on society. That is the consequences of, say, designing and implementing ICTs on society. So we're basically breaking them into three: outputs, outcomes, and impacts. Is there any difference between them? Outputs, outcomes, and impacts? And if at all, what is the difference? Please feel free to just share. Yes, Amen.
Okay, so from my general understanding, outputs can be the software or the product that the ICT company designs, and maybe they can use it for testing, but not necessarily might be the final product that they actually put out. So
You're muted.
I was telling Amen to get so closer to the device. He was struggling to get her.
okay, can you guys hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, so for me, that's the output, and the outcome can be the general view or attitude of the users and like generally everyone involved with the product after it's done, and the impact might be like one of the professors once told us a short story how some white people went to a village and then helped them build a well, and still the people used to walk like long to go fetch water, and then they solved that solution, but even after solving that they still went. So for me that's the impact, like the final effect the product has with its end users and even the community, like things. So that's my general understanding of the three.
Oh, thank you, Amen. I don't know whatever is happening. You get clear, then you got faint, then you get clear. Right. Well, I think we've got the gist of what you said. Okay, thank you very much, Amen. Who wants to go also to your thoughts on the outputs, outcomes, and out impacts, and maybe the examples? Yes, Frederick.
Yes, according to me, output is what is delivered.
Mm-hmm.
Outcomes are what changes or the benefits that occur.
Okay.
And the impacts are the broader or the long-term effects of the product.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Frederick. I think that okay, Ngoge.
Okay, I think outputs are like the direct result
Mm-hmm.
of the task or of the program or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then the outcome is like the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And then the impact is how it affects like the external environment or something over some time. Yeah.
All right, you guys are doing well. Huh? Is it because you've been to industry, or can we start patting ourselves on the back? Hey, these guys are learning. I think both of you have brought in very interesting perspectives. Yes. I think yes. Who wants to? So that's come out quite well. Who wants to pick examples? Sometimes to just illustrate this, maybe in the silent sector. Yes, Edwin. Edwin, you can go ahead. And if you're talking, we can't hear you.
I'm saying an
Yes,
example
yes.
is Starlink, which is a satellite internet as the output. And then we have the outcome, whereby there's connectivity regardless of the location on the surface of the earth. And then we have the impact. We can see all over Africa, we have Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Egypt. There's impact whereby satellite internet is being embraced and accepted by users. And even in Kenya, we see there's impact whereby Safaricom is reacting to Starlink and seeing it as a threat. I guess that is an example.
Okay, so I love that. So the outputs is actually the rolling out of Starlink, or maybe it's more of the adoption, if you may. So you roll it out, then there's adoption. So we're saying there's so many people who've connected in these different countries, and then yes. So we can actually put numbers on the table, and so many people have been connected, and da, 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 da. So, but in terms of outcomes, is perhaps, uh, you know, uh, yeah, maybe people are able to, for instance, how many more people are able to use that Starlink or that internet connection to be able to do certain things. So, for instance, you'll be able to say, so many people are working from home now because of this, because everybody has access to this. Maybe you'll be able to say, we're rolling out learning whatever, because now we're not too worried. Last time you're saying, okay, those COVID, everybody goes to their own corner. Some places there's no GSM, you know what I mean? And there's no broadband, fiber. But then, you can be anywhere, some place in Habaswine, and you have the little dish, and you're good. You just need power, perhaps, and you can get solar, and you're good to go. And then, of course, ultimate is impact. That is always tough. It's a long-term thing. It's maybe deciding in a certain community, pastoral community, that we actually began to connect and able to get there. So we can say, has there been an improvement in their quality of life? Okay, I'll give another very quick example so we can actually move on. Maybe let's think about maybe health. And so maybe thinking about interventions of health using technology. You can think of any. So in terms of outputs, okay, let me see this one. Maybe this is better. An output number of insurance policies sold by a company. Okay, outcomes, improved policy holder engagement. Okay, impact overall growth. Okay, that's another example. But I think you get the drift, right? So yes, so I was thinking about intervention. So of course, what are the outcomes? Maybe you say health outcomes now. How many more children are not getting preventable diseases, for instance? Maybe you say, okay, how many more mothers are giving birth safely? These are outcomes. These are real outcomes. How many more people, for instance, are healthier? Maybe because of the interventions, all that. Then you say, what are the impacts is, what is going to be the effect of this on maybe this is not a very high level. Maybe we begin to see we are actually reducing the, the the economic health burden. We can actually bring less resources. We can actually begin to see, because we are avoiding those diseases, the resources coming for the maybe curative have reduced significantly. Maybe what's remaining is preventative. And then we can actually begin to see that people are healthier, they are more productive. So at a very, very high level. Okay, so those are different things. So I want us to so thank you very much for that. I want us to discuss, basically be able to discuss a bit of that in a general sense, okay? Because when we shall be talking about the effect or the consequences of ICT in society, a lot of times, if you're not careful, you just think about outputs. But outputs, yeah, but what happens when these things are rolled out? What are the outcomes, real outcomes that are that are consequences. I think someone says consequences on the people. How is it changing? How is it transforming? What's changing, for instance? And after that is overall impact. Maybe it's at an economic level. Maybe it's at a learning level. Okay. Maybe it's at a health level that is affecting the people are healthier. They are producing more. They're living longer. And again, impact, to measure impacts, you can't do it within a year or two. It has to be with, very long term, and it's a societal. It's a societal. Okay. So you look at that, and then after that, we shall look at policy analysis. What goes into policy analysis? So of course, yes, we shall not go to strategies and policy analysis, and then perhaps then, if you're good to go, then we can then maybe get certain sectors, and then challenge us to give us maybe a policy in this sector that has this, and perhaps you shall maybe say, okay, impacts are very tough, and maybe let's look at outcomes, outputs and outcomes. Okay. Because again, most policies probably, maybe 5 years or something, you have to keep changing. Yeah, then you just give us this, and then you can begin to work in teams to come up with whatever it is we ask you to do. But for that to happen, another way to actually do it is that we more or less give you the task, which I want to make sure that I do it as early as next week. And then perhaps maybe dive into these outcomes and impacts, talk about policy analysis, okay? And then, you know your story, you can actually begin to go. But I give you lenses so that you don't run like a techie. We are from the same tribe, don't worry. I also think the techie, whatever mindset, that needs to change a little bit. Not really change, but become more nuanced, okay? So that's how come, for instance, you're looking at perspectives, you're looking at definitions, so they become a bit more nuanced. So you have a lens through which you see the power that you have as a techie to produce very powerful technologies, but they're geared towards an outcome, okay, and they are contextual, and they're taking on board the issues around it, so that you don't think like a pure techie. It doesn't take us very far. So I give you that, then you actually begin the process. So actually, quite a bit of the work is going to do. You'll have to, so you just kind of like keep pointing our direction, then you can go. So basically, that's what I want to talk about today. It's about an hour. I need to let you go. I didn't want to keep it too long today. But please, like I said, choose 5 colleagues and work as a team. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be engaging. I think to be adventurous, to be good for you, but you want to make sure that you select people who will enable you in this journey. Please select people that you can work with. Again, of course, I know teams. You need to get people that you can quickly form a team and begin working. So you say, okay, man, you work with this team for the last 2 years. We know our weaknesses, we know our issues, how we can sort it out. Okay, no problem, but just make sure, because it's going to be a bit of learning. So I think that's what I would say. So I will, I have a class, but I just want to tweak that a little bit, just set materials there. But I think I already said that, we'll need teams. We give you a task to do throughout the semester, and your learning journey will be basically geared towards solving a certain problem. We shall learn to be able to do this. What we need to do this, what we need to do this, and there's going to be lots of research and discussion. So that's what I'll be able to say. There's a question, teams of how many? Teams of 6. Okay, let's do 6. Edith, you want to say something?
Are we mixing group 1 and group 2, or is it like a separate group?
Say that again, Edith.
Are we mixing teams from group 1 and 2, or is it just from like this?
Yeah, I think this time around you're allowed. Just get whoever you feel these ones I can work with, because we're going to be working as one class. In other words, you're going to be learning together. So don't worry, just get whoever you think are best placed to work with you. That's okay. This time around, last time we restricted it because you are meeting, at different classes. So this time around, you have liberty to just get people to work with. All right, are we good to go? Today we are 54. I think I have 20 people not here, but I'm encouraged. Last semester I had class which, when we met in school, they were bored. When we met online, they were less. Very strange. So I think I'll let you go unless there's any quick questions. Then we can meet on Wednesday at 9. So wish you guys well out there. We hope to see you back in school soon. Great. So we'll see you again. Thank you very much.